When you have a history of greatness, the real challenge starts after the finish line. When victory alone isn't enough, you chase something greater, no matter how difficult the path. On the dirt, in the sand, and beyond. The new 2024 Ridgeline Passport and Pilot, part of our most rugged trail sport lineup yet. From Honda.
Hello, and welcome back to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, your host, Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker with Terrebonne Home Care. Very glad you're joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it. And we're always glad to welcome in some experts in the field, especially when it relates to this cold weather and how it affected our plants. We welcome in Miss Anna Timmerman, LSU Ag Center Assistant Horticulture Agent. And Miss Anna, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We appreciate it. And so some rather unprecedented cold weather, and we know that it affects our plants in certain ways. Tell us a little bit about how there's certain things that we should cover, certain things that we shouldn't, and maybe what we should do now that the snow is gone.
Yeah, this was certainly an unprecedented weather event. We tied for the snow totals here in New Orleans with the 1850 or 1895 records. Wow. So we weren't quite expecting to see almost a foot of snow in most areas. And here in the subtropical region of Louisiana, we do have a lot of sensitive plants that did experience some cold damage. We're looking good into that early February time frame as far as the weather goes. We're not anticipating another deep freeze or snow event at this time. The models seem pretty concise on that at this time. So any plants that you do have covered should be uncovered by now. Any potted plants that might have been moved indoors could be safely moved back outdoors also.
Yeah, and so for a lot of people that I know they had their plants covered, or they brought them in, and now we're looking at them and we're thinking, oh my gosh, they look terrible. Our plants look so sick. What do we do? But it's not necessarily about right now, but it's about how they'll recover. Very often they can recover themselves, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Plants have a really great ability to seal off and compartmentalize damage, especially after a freeze. And we want to let that process happen naturally. If we create more open wounds by pruning a little too soon, we can actually invite a lot of secondary fungal and bacterial infections. So sometimes the best action is no action for a couple of weeks. Give the leaves a chance to drop. Give the extent of the damage a chance to seal off, and that way you know exactly where to cut when it's time to prune.
Okay, and so a few weeks here now, right? So we kind of ended our freeze there sometime Friday or Saturday last week, depending upon where you were or how much shade you got. Because if some of your plants were still shaded and didn't get much sun, they stayed cold or they stayed rather frozen with snow on them for a while. Just let them naturally heal. And then if they don't in the next, say, 2 to 3 weeks or so, then we can look at the possible pruning there.
Yeah, and a really great thing to do is a scratch test. So you take your pruners or a fingernail and just kind of lightly scratch the surface. And this is a really great picture of that. You can see the green living tissue under the bark, and that's the cambium layer. That shows that that branch is in fact still alive, even though it's got a lot of brown kind of dead looking leaves attached to it. So we wouldn't want to prune that branch off. If you do the scratch test and it's brown in the underneath part, that's how you know that section did and unfortunately experienced some freeze damage. So you do want to trim back until you hit that green cambium layer.
Oh, wow. What a great idea to be able to kind of think about that. I don't have any, I know I have a green thumb. I don't have any thumbs as it comes to being able to do that. So for me, the kind of novice person that doesn't really know, it's a great idea to know that scratch test is a way to see that you still have some good life in those branches despite what the leaves look like. Because again, a lot of those external leaves fall off anyway. But in this damage, though it may be that it's just the damage toward the outer part, like it's shown here on this particular tree.
Yeah, that's correct. All those brown damaged leaves will actually drop. Usually within a month, they're all gone. And that's actually great because it corresponds with the warmer spring weather. And we get those buds at the nodes pushing the dead leaves off, and our new leaves emerge in those same spots. So we don't want to prune any of that tissue back because that's where our new leaves are going to come out from.
Yeah, and I think most of us are surprised after a cold snap, and certainly after this one, that oh my gosh, this tree made it. This plant
Exactly.
did okay. Even these subtropical, we have birds of paradise and lots of different types of plants, most of them with very difficult thorns on those. My wife loves to plant things that, are difficult to manage. But,
Oh, no.
but those are even, like, you start seeing, we got a fig tree even. The fig tree looks completely dead. Then all of a sudden, in another week or 2 or 3 weeks, we start seeing some buds there.
Yeah, most of our tropical plants did quite well, especially with the addition of the snow. If we think about what makes up snow, it's actually mostly air. So it worked as an insulative layer, which I think saved a lot of our more herbaceous or tropical plants, a lot of our vegetables. I'm not expecting a lot of damage to lawns even, because that snow was kind of like a blanket and it was trapping the radiant heat from the soil underneath there, which protected a lot of plants.
Yeah, it's a little shocking for people to look at something like that or think about how snow can be insulation. But again, thinking about it as air, it's actually preventing that cold from getting through to that soil.
Exactly. And it actually does have some atmospheric nitrogen in it too. So as it melts, it's actually fertilizing the soil at a very trace amount, usually about 2 to 14 pounds per acre, which is a nice added benefit for like our sugarcane growers and some of our commodity crop growers as well. So it's a nice little silver lining we don't usually get to take benefit from compared to farmers like up in the upper Midwest where they see snow every year.
Yeah, so if we're going to get cold, we might as well get snow. It'll help protect the soil.
Exactly.
So, okay, so good to know. We talked to several of the meteorologists about how this happened and what took place, and lots of things kind of came together. This is very helpful information, so we are very thankful and appreciative for the information, and we're going to hold off on pruning and just kind of make sure that those plants, and we're going to use that scratch test on those limbs to be able to see how it's going. But Miss Anna, we thank you very, very much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, and thank you very much for joining us as well. That'll do it for this particular segment, but don't go anywhere. A whole lot more Bayou time when we continue.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.